Group CEO, Prima Garnet Africa, Pioneer Secretary and CEO, Nigerian Branding Project, that's Mr. Akinwunmi. The fifth ADCON chairman, ADCON is Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, former president, AAAN, that is Association of Advertising Agencies in Nigeria, fellow Nigerian Institute of Marketing, chairman, Nitro 121, formerly 141 Nigeria, a very foremost Nigerian advertising agency. Board member, Charm Switch, adjunct lecturer, Pan-African University, author Skin to Skin, the Prima Garnet story. It's a story that I believe everybody will be interested. And is a man who has done over 100 published works. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah. There was a particular point when my mic was muted. I'm actually apologize. Mr. Akinwunmi is going to speak within 30 to 35 minutes, and then we can get our questions into the chat room, or if it's necessary, we allow you to have an intervention. Before you start to speak, this place is galaxies. Is a galaxy of stars, and please just at the right time, I'll be very glad to welcome a couple of them. We are all stars, but please permit me to just mention a couple of people. It's amazing that one of my mentors, my boss, the man who gave me my first advertising job, who gave me a head start in career, a man who had a lifetime achievement in a business. One time he was honored, and someone said, "If it's not your boss, it's your boss's boss." Mr. Shovanjo, I'd like to welcome Mr. Shovanjo. Please, join me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome a man who set me up, who set me out in this profession and business. At the appropriate time, we'll be glad to hear your voice, sir, because it's been a long, long time. We'd like to see the masquerade himself. Mr. John Obaro, the Managing Director of System Specs, is joining us, is here with us. I have a long list of people, but please, so that we can get into the business of the day, I want Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi to unpack the topic, riding the storm of business adversities. And you will agree with me that the world all over, and not sparing our country, is experiencing storms and adversities in business. Mr. Akinwunmi, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunde. While you were speaking, I was looking at the list of participants, and of course I saw Mr. Shovanjo's name, and I said, what is this thing that Tunde has done? I should be listening and he should be speaking.
Exactly.
So if you hear my voice shake a bit and all that, know there are reasons. You are very welcome, sir. And everybody else who is here, there are quite a few of my friends who are here. I welcome everyone. And I'd like to thank, let me honestly congratulate my brother and friend Tunde Ojo and the Touchstone family for starting this business sustainability series and sustaining it. From the discussions I've had with him and a few other people who have been part of it, and the quality of past speakers, it's clearly become a major contributor and landmark to knowledge sharing across many professions. Let me also thank Tunde for inviting me to speak. I'm greatly honored. And Tunde, if you don't mind, may I kindly request that at the appropriate time, the various lectures and papers be put together, possibly in a book form or electronically, so that they can serve as an easy reference for many who may wish to do studies on the various topics this series have thrown up and covered. Thank you. For the next few minutes, I'll be speaking on the topic, riding the storm of business adversity. And I promise you that it couldn't be a more fitting topic at a time such as we're in. I believe it's a relevant topic for such a time as we're experiencing a period of uncertainty across all lands. No land, no country is spared. In actual fact, it is doubtful if in modern times the entire world has faced such amazing challenge spanning the global economy, finance, health, social mobility, and many, many, many other things. In the next few minutes, I'll be sharing my opinions and perspectives on how we can all ride this storm in our various business endeavors. I'm also hoping that the discussions that will follow will add value to and enrich my presentation. In the Bible, somewhere in the Bible, in John chapter 16 and verse 33, I believe, Jesus spoke these words. I'd like to quote him. He said, "In this world you shall have tribulations, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world." I'm not preaching, but I thought it would be very fitting to start by these comments from Jesus on tribulation. And even though Jesus was speaking of the troubles that would come upon his disciples, the quotation fits the state of Nigeria and the world today. Majority of the world had hardly survived a major recession when the coronavirus broke in late December 2019, totally reversing most of the gains of the past couple of months. And to a large extent, I will endeavor to cover as many industries as possible, but will sometimes or oftentimes localize to my primary profession of marketing communications, as we will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on businesses and discuss how we can manage the huge storm it's created globally. But first, I believe that we need to understand the local and global operating environment where we all play. The global economy is at its poorest and most vulnerable in more than 100 years. Everybody agrees on this. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economy had looked shaky as the price of oil wobbled and tumbled, more so for a country like Nigeria, as oil and gas remain our mainstay. It's been a double whammy now that the economy is in a critical condition. Income from our Brent went as low as sub $10 per barrel. But as at this morning, when I checked, it's selling for slightly over around $44 per barrel. So we made a little gain. For a long time, Nigeria had unsold cargo on the high seas. And even with our $5 per barrel rebate, we did not get buyers, meaning we were paying heavily for the storage on the high seas as our local storage capacity was full. It was terrible. And as is usually the case in a poorly managed mono economy like ours, this has affected everything else, from projected government revenue to financial services, production, fast-moving consumer goods, everything. The little light on the horizon will probably be the telecoms. And while the telecoms appear to be very active, especially in this season, as we all stay and work at home and use Zoom and other apps that run on airtime, they also will be affected eventually if people are not working and earning, because the issue of opportunity cost will come in. The average Nigerian will have to make up his or her mind if they want to buy credit or a loaf of bread. There's going to be that contention where you don't have too much disposable income. And if we look at what happened in Venezuela as a close example, also as a major crude exporter, when it went through its crisis, even the telcos there went belly up. It was bad. People couldn't just pay for these things. And for 2020, Nigeria we had forecast an economic growth of 7% for 2020. But most observers found that estimate over-optimistic. Before the fall in oil prices, the IMF downgraded the growth forecast to 2.5%. And for 2020 and 2021, this would be below the sub-Saharan Africa's average growth of about 3.5%, for both years. Now, as a result of the pandemic, the IMF has predicted that in 2020, Nigeria economy will contract by 3.4%. If you look at the size of our economy, 3.4 is a huge, huge, huge number. Moody's also predicted a negative economic growth outlook for Nigeria. With this, if care isn't taken, we are staring at a major recession by the end of 2020. Everybody is almost certain that if we are not careful, that will happen. Sadly, Nigeria has become a net borrower again. Under OBJ, we negotiated off our debts. And recently, we collected another tranche of $3.4 billion from the IMF. Recent data obtained from the Central Bank of Nigeria show that as of June 2019, Nigeria's total external debt stood at 8.3 trillion naira. That's $27.1 billion. Overall, Nigeria's public debt stock stood at 25.7 trillion naira, and that's nearly $85 billion. The country spent a whopping $1.3 billion to cover external debt obligations between January and November 2019. It's a really critical situation. And because of the decline in oil revenue, there is some concern of a default in our obligations if not well managed. And IMF and Co are watching our capacity to continue to meet our debt servicing obligations. The implication of sustained borrowing, of course, is that it puts more pressure on our income when we service the loans, and the inability to have much left for recurrent expenditure and critical development and infrastructural projects and so on and so forth. The global financial community is likely to come to our rescue. They'll probably keep lending us money because they cannot, amongst other things, they cannot allow the Nigerian economy to go belly up, as this can lead to unrest and political turmoil that can spread to and affect the sub-region all the way to Gambia. However, the big worry is that Nigeria has again become a net borrower. Now, in terms of short-term expectations, it is likely that in 3 months, we will still be managing the effect, the hard effects of COVID-19, except of course the vaccine has come out. If not, the economy and the country will remain in bad shape. In 6 months, it's almost certain we'll have a vaccine, and hopefully we'll be in a better position to begin to revive the economy. The doubts still remain though, because we have very few options for reflating outside of oil income and borrowing. So overall, we're looking at a very, very tough time for Nigeria for the rest of 2020 and perhaps the first and second quarters of 2021. We cannot meet our projected growth forecast, and we'll be lucky if the economy experiences any growth at all. The good news, though, is that if some urgent structural changes are made, we may experience some recovery, perhaps as we end of Q2 or as we go into Q3 of 2021. Now, having given this background, what is the possible impact on our economy, this economy that the whole world is so interested in? Well, given that I don't have the time to do a full presentation on this, I'll zero in on the marketing communication industry as a yardstick. And I think it is fitting and appropriate, as marketing communication is one of the pointers to an economy that is doing well or is in regress, because marketing drives trade and commerce anyway. The marketing communication industry is already suffering a major catastrophe. And I'm being very, very careful with the choice of my words. It is often said that when our clients sneeze, we catch a cold. But what then happens when the clients catch a cold? Some of the specific effects on the industry and the larger economy are: one, there is very slow, or if you like, negative growth in an industry already seriously affected by the economy. Definitely a further contraction and decline is imminent. It is estimated that the industry has suffered a contraction of anything between 50 and 60%. And if you look at it, that it's a billion naira, industry that represents a big figure. We hope it doesn't get any worse than this. Two, the industry has not witnessed any new investment because of the low return on investment. No new investment. I think I'm fairly current with developments either from the side of APCON or from the side of AAAN, and I think what I'm reporting is accurate. There is no record of any new serious agency, as neither APCON nor the industry associations have such records. Thirdly, companies have reduced staff salaries by between 30 and 60% as no income is coming in. Major clients like our breweries are not making sales as people are afraid to gather together for social drinking, and government has banned all parties where drinking and the use of such products take place. Four, airlines, hotels, and all hospitality industries are in a flux. Indeed, just a few days ago, Virgin Atlantic declared redundancy in some parts of the world. It's the same story locally. Over 200 aeroplane and helicopter pilots have been made redundant, over 200 of them. Even Nollywood cannot produce new movies because of the ban on association. It's touched everyone. All this have resulted in retrenchment in the various industries and others like banking, aviation, hospitality, and so on. For us, these have affected the ability of the industry to function professionally. No new clients, no fresh income, current businesses are not productive, banks are not lending, cash flow is depleted. I mean, the list is endless. And one can then say that, if you are looking at a worst case scenario, many companies are folding up, further worsening the unemployment situation, and the fallout like crime and other social disconnections are likely, almost certainly will follow. Now, having presented this on the back of the background to our economy, can we then say that the entire situation is lost? I'd like to talk briefly about opportunities within the pandemic and downturn. And I'm not just sounding positive. I think I have some good reasons to feel so. Having said all this, is there any hope for our economy? Is there any hope for the global economy? Certainly. Or is the case terminally bad? Are we to fold our hands and wait for those who believe we are Christians, wait for the rapture? Every negative situation presents an opportunity. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, lasting from 1929 to 1939. And it began after the stock market crash of October 1929, which sent Wall Street in panic and wiped out millions of investors and shares and assets and all. Many people, thousands of people committed suicide. And yet, the same period raised many billionaires in America. It's amazing. In fact, one of the books I read on it showed that those who were able to make their money very quickly were those who sold illicit alcohol, because a lot of people needed to drink their sorrows away. And so they made a lot of money. Many billionaire families of today owe their current fortunes to businesses that started during the Great Depression, when an estimated 15 million Americans were unemployed, at its height, yet these families rose above all of this by pouring their energy and businesses into businesses that started small but are today's household names. Recessions create a specific breed of entrepreneurs known as survivalist entrepreneurs. Survivalist entrepreneurs. Unlike their traditional counterparts, survivalist entrepreneurs enter trades and industries that consumers still need with small startup costs. There are some industries that will always be relevant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatever is happening. The food industry is a common choice. In fact, more than half of the families whose fortunes began building during the Great Depression started with food, and they now tally a combined net worth of over $30 billion. They opened small grocery stores in their homes, street corners, and met one of the most basic needs of man, which is food. The opportunities that face us that we have, must be guided by two objectives. One is short-term survival. The other one is medium/long-term. Let's talk about the short-term survival. The short-term survival must look beyond our primary industry or vocation, or look into associated businesses to these vocations or industries. In advertising, for example, clients are not spending, or when they do, the spending is reduced, and many are not able to pay their agencies on time. To therefore remain in the industry and have expectations does not make too much sense. The best thing is to look at allied businesses within the profession, or to look out at new businesses completely. That is what conventional wisdom will tell us. It's been predicted that during and post-COVID-19, services will be hot in demand. I have read at least 6 research papers that have confirmed this. Even our local experts, the PwCs of this world, have also confirmed that services will be hot in demand. We're looking at food, we're looking at deliveries, and so on and so forth. Companies and individuals will be cutting costs and buying cheaper services they used to pay a lot for or used to provide in-house. Entry point for most services is low. Some of it, for most of these services is low, and running costs manageable. I'm sure many of us have seen the emergence of delivery motorcycles. I mean, they are everywhere. Many of them used to be Okada riders. I made some inquiries, and I found out that the business is good and income regular. Indeed, some people have over 20 or 30 of such motorcycles, and they generate daily immediate cash. I mean, just 7 months ago, very few people would have thought in this direction. Focus, therefore, must be on how to continue to generate enough cash to keep the business going. And to this extent, our business models must change or be reviewed. In every moment of economic downturn or depression, experts will tell you cash is king. Cash is king. You must make sound inquiries and plug into the service loop where there are usually low-hanging fruits with reasonable startup cost that will generate cash for us. This is critical. And where capital, maybe to start, is an issue, groups can pool resources together to start the businesses and offer them. It's not a good time to borrow, in my opinion, except the business is very promising and you are able to pay off the huge interest on such borrowing. Small, medium, and long term, if the predictions go right, we should begin to see some sunshine by the end of the second quarter of 2021, when hopefully the economy picks up. There will be the need to re-engineer and invest in non-core areas. For advertising, for example, or to those who wish to invest in the profession, digital is the new global deal, and you don't need a big agency to play in this space. Competing players already include companies like Anderson Consulting, PwC, and so on and so forth. Agencies must invest heavily in this space. It's the future. Indeed, from the last research I did, globally, digital is outspending traditional advertising by almost 45% of clients' budget. I mean, that is just amazing. The only thing that ever challenged mainstream advertising like this many years ago was media. So this tells us that it's clearly one of the places to look at and go. We also have the creative capacity to invest in major areas of production and keep our talents busy. We must commercialize such operations. The key one is radio film production. Nigeria has become a major hub, and in global ranking, India comes first, Nollywood comes next, and Hollywood comes third in terms of volume. We must commercialize such operations. A key one is, like I said, is radio film where Nigeria, Nollywood, where Nigeria has become a hub, and even our music. Indeed, our production facilities cannot cope with the twin demands of Nollywood and music. And if you begin to add this to the other digital production, like production of skits and so on, it's an interesting place really to invest. We also must generally invest in the BTL space that we have often ignored and deliver better value based on our knowledge and experience. There'll be opportunities in sponsorship and high-end training. These are areas that agencies would normally ignore and leave to others. Since we develop the strategies that drive brand activities and provide opportunities for these other players, perhaps it's time for us to make more money from our efforts and creative investment. Overall, one, cost cutting is now very critical, is the new normal. And I believe we are all getting enough practice working from home. Operational costs are down and will have to remain so. Working from home has become the new reality, and companies like Google, about a month ago, declared that even post-COVID-19, it will become a permanent fixture of their operation. I can imagine that companies can save on many running costs and expenses like diesel, NEPA, transportation during office hours, and so on and so forth. Like the global economy, our economy also cannot be the same again. Even if we don't want to redefine it, which is too late, the transformation going on is well beyond our ability to control. And in my opinion, it's better for us to swim with the tide. For example, the days of the monolithic traditional companies, agencies are gone. Smaller, more manageable operations, more nimble are in. Focus must be on technology to help us deliver the same quantum of value and even better. I sense and I predict that in the months and years to come, quite a few non-advertising people will invest heavily within our sector. We're moving away from, in fact, I was speaking in class a few months ago, and I said very soon, the word advertising is going to have a totally different meaning entirely. It's just amazing because there's a crossover of so many other disciplines into the marketing communication space. We must do a thorough review and adapt. We cannot be like the dodo, that bird that refused to learn to fly and became extinct. We need to first unlearn old skills. And there are so many old skills. And I recall when I joined Linters in 1982, we did everything for our clients, including buying their air tickets if they needed to travel. PR, all the disciplines were under our modest roof. And just 10, 15 years afterwards, there had been a lot of breaking down, and many industries had come out and are still coming out from the traditional advertising industry. We are going to experience more of this as people begin to carve new niches for themselves. as people need to unlearn old skills and then learn new ones. Meetings will not have to be physical most of the time. We need to empower ourselves with a growing technology that can make us organize and take part in virtual meetings with ease without any loss in the quality of delivery and deliverables. I mean, we are doing that now. We are having a practice run. Eventually, it's going to be our new reality. Very soon, some industries may completely transform. Soon, we may hardly hear the word advertising, like I said, and when you do, it cannot be within the context of what we used to know and do. If companies that we used to call accounting firms, Anderson and Co., are coming into the communication space, then those who played there traditionally must reinvent. There's nothing that stops a partnership, for example, between any of these management consultancies like PwC, Anderson and Co., and our creative agencies. I've been thinking about this, and the more I think about it, the more it makes a lot of sense to me. Within each professional group, you've got loads of talent and opportunities. Such a new operation will be a powerhouse, offering an unbelievable value from such synergy. Inevitably, some companies will drop by the wayside. They will die. Usually, such things happen when the world goes through a situation such as we have. They will not be able to manage the transition. They will not be able to compete. They were never structured to compete, and so the storm that is blowing, clearly they will become casualties. There's nothing anybody can do about this. And as they die, I don't like that word. As they go away, new players will emerge, younger, sexier, more savvy, very ambitious men and women, mostly operating from the comfort of their laptops, using data the way we have never used data. We see them now in Nigeria and in other parts of the world. This is the future of the global economy. This is the future post-COVID. And while COVID is deadly and we leave many casualties in its wake, we also must arm ourselves with the strong mindset that COVID, or whatever it's called, and the situation such as we have now, cannot be forever. It cannot be forever. We have to continue to think ahead of whatever situation that we have. We need a very strong mindset, that it cannot be the end of the world or the end of creative thinking. If our perspectives are right, if we arm ourselves with enough knowledge and savvy, it may yet represent the start of a new phase, not just for our country, but for the whole world. And for those who manage people and have staff, please carry them along. They are still our biggest assets. Continue to keep your team together as best as you possibly can. Empower them to ride the storm and prepare them for the post-storm era when the sea is going to be calmer. It's going to be calmer, no doubt. Make them to share the vision and carry them along, and make them share parts of the responsibilities as well. And above all, let's continue to put all our trust and faith in God, and don't let us stop praying. Thank you very much.
Wow. What an insightful session from Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi. There is no doubt that he has earned his name over the years as a world-class professional and a leader in a subsector of the economy. And I'm so glad to see the galaxy of stars, the people who have joined us today to hear Mr. Akinwunmi speak. And we are not disappointed, very, very incisive. Before we start having discussions, it would be nice, particularly for those who are joining us a little bit late. Mr. Akinwunmi gave a quick background to the world in which we have found ourselves, a world in which fossil fuel is no longer going to be very important because the cost at a particular point, was it Canada, was even offering that people should come and offload their fuel for free, you know, and all of that. Nigeria wasn't anything when the thing went beyond, below zero. And we have everything, the forecast of IMF, the growth forecast for 2020, 2021 were not very pleasant at all. And also the moody prediction of a recession. And we just left one, Nigeria. He talked about net borrowing. He cited the example of 3.4 billion from dollars from IMF in Nigeria, and that President Obasanjo got us out of the challenges of borrowing, but we're back there. All right. So he said we don't have any option but to replay the economy because unfortunately, experts have been telling us that we have a diversified economy, but he is of the opinion that it's a mono economy all the same, particularly because of export proceeds is essentially coming from oil. And then he mentioned the impact on the economy. Marketing, communication, I focus on marketing communication industry. And he said marketing drives trade and commerce, very correct. He mentioned that in the past, when our clients sneezed, we will catch cold. Now, they are not only catching cold, they are catching COVID-19. So you can imagine, some of them are already in isolation centers. So those of us who are not, as advertising agency or marketing communication practitioners, are probably watching what will happen to them or what happened to us. No new investment. Business has contrasted by 50 to 60% according to him. Staff reduced 20 to 50%, salaries down. Airlines and hotels not spared, Virgin redundancy, Nollywood not producing new movies, retrenchment, restructuring, right sizing, whatever management consultant will keep it so as to make people happy to go home. No new clients, banks are not lending, cash flow is not good, cash is king. Now, what are the opportunities within the pandemic? And he said every negative situation will always breed its own. Somebody was sharing, was it maybe about 2 weeks ago, that in the Chinese character for crisis is also opportunities. Recession, according to Mr. Akinwunmi, breeds a new set of specialist, survivalist entrepreneurs. I mean, that was the first time, I was hearing that. Thank you for boosting business vocabulary. They enter the market with small startup because the cost is very low. And he mentioned the food industry as an example, and mentioned, the flurry of activities of, the delivery guys or former Okada riders on our streets. Then Mr. Akinwunmi also went to tell us of the short-term survivor as well as medium-term survivor, particularly in advertising, where clients are not spending, that there's a need for allied businesses, for advertising agencies and marketing communication practitioners. And also to look at what will be hot in demand. He mentioned the food industry is going to be busy because it's very, very basic need of man. And that the entry points of these businesses are not really, really very, very, very. He said, well, borrowing may not be a good thing to do now, can put funds together and start something new. He is looking at his crystal ball. I know he doesn't look at crystal ball. And he's forecasting that by second quarter, based on what experts are telling us, second quarter of 2021, we shall start seeing some relief in terms of, economic, coming back to the regular normal. Now he gave us that digital is a new space and that players are already competing in this particular space. Accenture, Arthur Anderson, the old Arthur Anderson, now KPMG, PwC, and the rest. The big professional services companies have gone into a foray into the creative industry, and he suggested there might be a reason for advertising agencies, marketing communication firms to partner with some of these companies and do what can be called the new normal in terms of arrangement and alignment. He also gave us hope by saying production capacity that agencies and marketing communications companies have can be put to good use. We can commercialize radio as well as film, music, and invest in also in below the line. He talked about sponsorship and high-end training. He also spoke about strategies driving entrepreneurship, cutting cost for survivor is a new normal, working from home is a new phrase that the world is getting used to. He mentioned Google. Google will not get back to the office till 2021. There's a gentleman who has joined us who is, if you like, is in the payment space, a leading company, System Specs. They've just opened their very new office. I had the privilege of being there, and I was joking the other time that how come they are shutting you guys out? Because they said they are going to be working from home for quite some time to come. Agencies that are being monolithic, big agencies, big is no longer beautiful because they are already becoming dinosaurs. That is what Mr. Akinwunmi has told us. Focus will be on the digital space. Through the review of our business, we need to learn old skills and learn new ones, empower ourselves with growing technology and partnership with professional services. And he said, it's not the end of the world for those who are praying for rapture. We might not come as Christians as readily as we want it. We need to survive and thrive. Once again, Mr. Akinwunmi, we appreciate you greatly for this very insightful and thought-provoking. Now, it's time to ask questions and to make comments. You will only have just 60 seconds, like we do it in our commercials, to either make a comment or to have a question. If you're asking a question, 30 seconds. If you're making a comment, 60 seconds. I want to once again welcome the boss of all bosses in this industry, the man who has invested so much and have had the privilege of drinking under his watch, drinking from the same water. I started my career in insight, and I'm better off for it. I'm better off for it. Mr. Shumanjo, thank you very much for providing us with leadership, entrepreneurial leadership, professional leadership, and all the good leadership that anybody can get. I am better off for starting off my career in insight. I later moved to Linters, and I know the difference. That's where Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi probably started his career. Well, that's for another story.
I won't say anything today.
Don't say anything. No, today is going to be a fight. Okay. Now, I will be glad if Mr. Shumanjo will say a word, and it will be an honor and privilege of this platform for him to come around. We are going to send in an invitation because we want to drink from the fountain of experience. I tell people, I said, people talk about old school and new school. I said, I don't believe in old school or new school. I believe in the real school, which is a combination of the old school experience and the new school, which is being driven by technology. So, sir, you can unmute, sir, and say a couple of words before we can hear from some other masquerades that are in the room. Obviously, you are the big masquerade. Thank you, sir. And thank you for giving the job. Thank you, sir. Thank you
very much. I thank you for the kind sentiments expressed. It's really appreciated, really highly appreciated. But I can't tell how very much you are embarrassing me by dragging me into this. When I saw, I'm not sure whether it was Lulu that sent the message to me yesterday. I said, well, if Lulu has to talk about anything, I better go and learn. So, because you know, the truth about life and learning is that you do it until you die.
That's right.
You can learn from a 5-year-old, doesn't matter how old you are. And during this period of lockdown, you wouldn't believe the number of webinars I've attended. Once I know something is going on from which I can learn something, I invite myself to join. Then, of course, I discovered that it was Tunde's agency that was organizing this. So it made it a double joy for me to participate. So I'm really very
Thank you.
Appreciative of being with you this afternoon. And I greet all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen that are attending this webinar. As at last count, I think there are about 63 people that are participating, which is very good for a Saturday. No, as most of you would know, 15 years ago, I stood down from advertising practice. So really, I don't even understand what goes on there anymore because I'm not a practitioner. I'm old school. So I just watch. I stay from the outside looking in, as they say. But this subject is of interest to everybody. If you still breathe, as it were. And let me start from the very lighter side. Somebody sent me again a message this afternoon saying, oh, please, can you fill up the tanks of your cars because tanker drivers are going to be off the roads in Lagos from Monday. So I sent a reply saying, I beg your pardon, because I think the person was still thinking about the days of yore. He's forgotten that people don't even go anywhere anymore. So why would I be filling my cars? I don't need the petrol. You know, I don't need the petrol. So the tankers, they get off the road. If it's good riddance to bad rubbish, as far as I'm concerned. You know, that's point number one. Again, this afternoon, on a lighter note, and I shared that I got from one of my friends, the message about Chinese probably becoming what's called now a national anthem. Maybe in 25 years, if we're unable to pay our debt to the Chinese. And there was a Chinese guy who was teaching people how to sing, so they composed a new national anthem for us. And I said, well, this has to do with the subject as well, because if we're talking about business adversity, if you're unable to pay our debt in 20 years to the Chinese, of course, they come here and begin to look at our sovereignty, you know, because suddenly we might, in fact, become part of China. It might become a region in China for all we care. So the truth is that how do we prevent these kind of things? And I think Lolu has spoken sufficiently about the subject matter. But if I might just add a few things. One of the people that I really admire is Richard Branson for what he did with Virgin. Because I know the story and I've seen how that business was diversified from a little record store to becoming the conglomerate that it is. Now, in our very eyes, to see him file for bankruptcy in the United States, I mean, it's something that should tell us something, that we are going through a very bad patch. And there are examples all over the world where this COVID-19 thing has wreaked a whole lot of havoc. But okay, so the question is, how do we survive? Because as human beings, we must learn the art of survival. And I think that this is what this is all about. Some people are doing it in our very presence. Lulu has made allusion to a couple of them. But I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, I watched a program on television. There was this young man in Nnewi who now do PEPs. You know, this protective equipment that people wear. because they used to import the thing. This guy, I mean, he only just started maybe a couple of months ago. He saw the opportunity, went in there, dialogue with NDDC, Standard Organization of Nigeria. They gave him this person. They said, look, you have to match this particular global standard. And that's what the guy is doing, a young man. I'm like, oh my God, see the opportunity that this has created for this guy. And he said, look, every Friday, they've gone into arrangement. They come and, fumigate the entire office and the entire premises and the entire machines. So when they come back on Monday, everybody is coming to a sparkling clean office. I mean, of course, we all know about those guys who have been doing face masks and things like that. All of those things have been imported before. It created another opportunity for us. So those are the kind of things that we should be looking at. Now, if you look at those in the service industry, I said to myself, look at the banks, for crying out loud. Look at the banks. Irrespective of what happens, they survive. They have their heads above water. And I think that, for me, that's a lesson. I've had the privilege of attending a couple of board meetings and AGMs in the recent past. And these are some of the things that we discussed at these meetings. How do we ensure that our overheads, our running costs, everything is not running ahead of income? So for me, that's the challenge. All right, to generate this revenue, every time you find that your overhead is running ahead of revenue. How do you do that? You have to find a way around that. And it is possible. Cost cutting. Now, people don't understand that even the businesses you work on, how do you determine that you are running it profitably? What kind of margins are you making on every business that you run? What resources are you deploying to service that business? Because you may find out that you're just running around like a headless chicken, wasting time, and actually running at a loss on a constant basis. And of course, in terms of cost cutting, you may need to merge companies, bring them together, reduce overhead, all those kind of things. I think those are some of the things that we would need to do as we go forward and open our eyes and look at opportunities. Because the truth about it is that there are opportunities surrounding us. They are just there, but we just fail to see them. And it just requires a bit of sitting back, and saying, what do you need to do? I mean, those who are running businesses now, and I'm not restricting this to advertise. The CPN, as indeed it's happened all over the world, everybody's realized that this COVID-19 thing is hit everybody. So if you are indebted to the bank, you can go back there and renegotiate, all right? I mean, if you have a good business, the banks themselves may be willing to support you insofar as they can see a clear path. You're able to define what you want to do, and they can see that this is true. So if you're indebted to your bank, you restructure your loan, and so that they can give you some room to breathe, all right? I mean, and I tell you, banks are accepting 3-year restructuring, they're accepting 4-year restructuring, because really, that is the reality on ground. And as I said, you can get, Lolu did say something that, no, don't go to the banks to borrow at this time. I would say yes and no to that. If you are borrowing for a particularly good cause, where everybody can see that there is opportunity. I just told you about the guy who is doing PP. He couldn't have had the money to quickly bring in those equipments. I'm sure there must have been some financial institutions that supported him. Definitely yes. But they know they're going to get their money back. They probably won't get it back in about 18 to 24 months. You might have said, look, I'm going to take this loan for 5 years, as opposed to what used to happen before. And he's not going to get it on, may not get it on double digits. He won't get it on 25% or whatever, because these are the realities of time. That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant by saying we have to look at the realities of the situation. So new normal, office spaces. I can tell you that, for example, we are looking at shrinking our office spaces, because the guys have, I mean, since this pandemic started, none of the companies to which I am chairman, none has gone back to the office. We have told our staff, work from home, and they're working from home. Anybody that goes to the office just wants to go there. Maybe he wants to go there and see something. But since early March, none of our companies, apart from one, I don't want to lie, and that's our security company, because the nature of the business requires that they have to work 24/7. But all our businesses in market, everybody works from home. All right? So why do we need all those office spaces? We're going to collapse them as we go forward, because we can save that money that can go to bottom line or deploy it somewhere else. You know, for me personally, there's no way I don't think I'm going to any office. No more. My office is where I'm sitting right now. So that becomes my permanent office. Well, I used to go to the office maybe twice a week before, but now everything would have to happen. So those are some of the things that would cross my mind as I was quickly dragged into this thing. I didn't prepare anything, so you have to forgive me. But I think that what I've said has made a bit of sense, and that we want to turn them in our minds and see whether they're useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Before our speaker,
thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So thank you for your intervention, sir. I'm also, it's been a long time I've seen Mr. Shovanjo. Now, I'm so glad the fire is still there. The lion is alive and the fire is still there. Thank you once again. I mean, I can't thank you enough. You were used by God to set me on a journey of a profession that I still have pride. And I remember in those days, you used to tell us, let's go and meet when we're going for a pitch, let's go and demonstrate knowledge. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure there are so many people who might want to intervene. I want to give you indulgence. By now, we should have brought this to a close, but we just extend this a little bit so that Mr. Akinwunmi, Lolu Akinwunmi can talk, and if you have intervention. Mr. Akinwunmi was our guest speaker. He was executive director in First Bank. I'm sure he has a dimension to whether we should borrow now or not, because there are two opinions: yes and no for Mr. Shovanjo, no for Mr. Akinwunmi. Okay, over to you, Mr. Akinwunmi. A couple of you can respond to that before, because I have a couple of things also to ask you. Thank you.
Okay, did you mean me or Kehinde? Was that for me or for Kehinde, Lawansin?
Well, Kehinde,
it probably meant me, actually.
Oh, yeah, Kehinde Lawansin can interview.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tudeojo. Again, I can see the reverence with which you acknowledge Mr. Dr. Shovanjo. I was privileged to be his relationship manager when I was in First Bank. And I recall that most times when I met him, I always recall NASCO conflicts advert. It was a very striking advert that won a lot of awards. NASCO quality conflict. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I know that I will not say that Mr. Akinwunmi was trying to demarcate the banks. That it cannot be his intentions.
Far from it.
But there are 2-3 reasons that are arguments for borrowing at this time.
Okay.
In every economy, when the exchange rate is in bad shape, like we have now, nobody's very sure whether it is 450, whether it is 470, whether it is 500. In every economy where there is high inflation, it's not what bankers want me to say. This is not the time to save. This is the time to borrow. It is not what bankers will want me to say. So in the halls of the banks, We know the only people who save at this time are the uninformed, because your money is losing value. Real value of money is dropping. So when the real value of money is in this kind of fashion, the best to play is to be a borrower. When money is losing value, the best play is to be a borrower. And not just borrowing for borrowing's sake. Of course, there are all kinds of reasons why you should borrow. Borrow to acquire assets, borrow short-term obligations, borrow to rearrange your capital. There are all kinds of reasons to borrow. So you must look for a good business must look for reasons to borrow now, because the money is losing value. So in other words, if you borrowed 100 million today, it is likely that in real value, what you're going to be using to pay back is less than 100 million. That is the argument for borrowing. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lansing. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Akinwunmi, some intervention. But before your response, I have always been, perhaps because I sojourn in banking, because of my sojourn in banking, I met Mr. Kennedy Lansing at International Merchant Bank. To be more specific, I celebrate him as a friend because he dropped my application. I was then working in Lintas, but then I was interested in the financial services. So I want to publicly acknowledge the role and his friendship over the years. He's been a friend, a man of integrity, a man that I cherish his values. So it's important to know. I used to wonder that how come our business, the business of advertising, was defined by turnover, billings. So we had an industry that was not efficient. It was never efficient. My sojourn in banking made me to know that there was too much of glamour and less of efficiency. Well, we're struggling with the challenges that we have as one of the players in the industry. There's no doubt about that. We're not as diversified as the behemoth that Mr. Shobanjo and also Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi, are sitting on. But how can a business run itself based on turnover, based on billings? But I remember many years ago in one of your interventions, Mr. Akinwunmi, you said that billings are vanity and bottom line sanity. You may have forgotten. Many years I cannot forget. Then before we close this, it's also important that I make this note that Prima Garnet was one of those businesses that became an inspiration to us, because I read in his article that you could do the business of advertising and still keep ethics. I read the interview in the People magazine. I'm sure I've mentioned that before to you. So I think it's fair to celebrate your values, even in a very, very difficult environment and difficult business. I'm talking about Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi. I think you can respond and then see how we can bring all of this to a close. I'm sorry, I will not be able to welcome everybody. I've mentioned Mr. John Obaro. I've seen Henrietta Fagbo, a dear friend and sister. I've seen the managing director of Prima Garnet, Yetunde Additional. I've seen a whole lot of good and great guys on this platform. Once again, I appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you very much. The last time I spoke about Mr. Shobanjo, and I'm going to admit that I have a very close relationship with him. Last time I spoke about him publicly was in Abuja. He was a guest speaker at a forum that APCON organized. and I had reasons to make some comments. Every industry must have people that others can look up to as barometers. I've never worked in Insight, and I remember one day I asked him jokingly that, why didn't I? It's me, let me go and work in Insight, and he laughed over it and all that. But I have many very, very, very good friends who, of course, passed through Insight.
Many were called, but few were chosen, like me.
I would argue with you because Mr. Shobanjo said, he wasn't here, I would have answered you today. But one thing that I know he has taught us, for those who have watched him in the industry, is the Insight agency is very, very strong. He has taught us that you can run a world-class agency that is strong. I mean, you worked in Insight, you know. But beyond that, he's also taught us that, look, everything he has spoken today about opportunities and investment, he's talking from it. He's not talking from textbook. Mm-hmm. We can name at least 4 or 5 industries that we know that he has invested in. So that is a message to us that he was doing this before pandemic anyway. Right. So he must have seen certain things. One of the problems with agency people, I have a book that I've read about 4 times, is we get so immersed in this business of creativity. We are most times very bad, very poor business people. That's why an agency would do a billing of, for example, 100 million, 500 million, a billion, and the profit will be less than 5 million. It doesn't happen in banking or insurance. We focus more on the glamour. We can spend the whole of central bank to the ground. But the business acumen that we so need to grow this business, to invest in it, to expand it, to make it profitable, is not easily available in many, many agencies. And I think it's one of the problems. So that when situations such as we have now come, many agencies can't respond to it. They don't know how to cope. It's not anything we've always done. Agencies will shout more about billing. Very rarely will you hear agencies talk about profit. You talk about billing, that account is 1.5 billion. It ends there. An insurance person will be telling you, a banker, that out of that 1.5 billion, we are netting 600 million. And then because we have access, well, not anymore. We used to have access to quite a bit of clients' money. We got into the habit of spending our money and spending what was not our money. And generally, as long as other monies were coming, we were rolling it over. Today, you know what I'm talking about. We're rolling it over and all of these things. But I think moving ahead, it's going to be a new way for running agencies. Those opportunities are gone forever. It's either you run properly, it's either you bring in those who will advise you, it's either there are changes that must happen. Yesterday and I are forever talking with other members of our team. We are looking at things differently. We are seeing things differently. It's the only way to survive. Otherwise, we are going to have to leave the business. And let me thank Mr. Shobanjo for, Yesterday is with us. I'm sure he must be very proud of what Yesterday is doing there. Thank you very much, sir.
I really am. Yes, I'm very proud of what she's doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akinwunmi. Once again, I hope we will be so fortunate to have the big masquerade himself, my own Oga for life, to come on this platform. This platform is established to help business dimension issues that are facing us, and it's not limited to advertising. We've had former central bank deputy directors speak to us, world-class economists, people from different walks of life. Mr. Lansing was here last Saturday, and it was a huge time. People in technology. Iyaboeji was here. He was a co-founder of Andela as well as Flutterwave, young and old. And this platform is all for us in search of solution. It's a service to the industry. It's a service to the business community. Once again, I want to thank you because we don't want to take your time I want to thank Mr. Toye Odunsi of Crusader, I think it's Crusader, joining us, Mr. Lankpe Omoyele of Nitro, that's the CEO of Nitro 121, and so many people. This is star-studded. We will bring this to a close, and what we do is that everyone that has spoken on this platform is part of a faculty that we can call from time to time, either to solve problems or to answer into anything. Sir, again, an open invitation to my guy and leader, boss of bosses. I hope when I come knocking, I'll give you a good time so that you can come and share the experience of old as well as new with us, because you are running business. Once again, Mr. Lolu Akinwunmi, thank you. Within a very short time, you have accepted to share here. I pray that God will continue to bless all that you are doing and your family. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Draw this to a close, and thanks for Mr. Lawrence. Thanks for your intervention, Mr. John Ovaro, the silent listener, almost at every of this book. He will not talk, but I understand it. He doesn't want the money that he's making, even while he's sleeping. He doesn't want any kobo to fall away by talking. He's leaving the rest of us to do all the talking, because we are coming to him either to pay federal government or to do something. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.